All right, so I have a couple of little only in the observer things that I pulled out, and then we have some
I love
questions
those.
that came from your page that we'll get through. But the only in the observer. So I didn't know that Dave had a bunch of pet peeves, but in pet peeve 103, he's got an issue with the announcers who say he didn't hook the leg as the reason for them not getting the pinfall. He blames it on Gorilla, but says that Jim Ross and Michael Hayes are falling into the same pattern. So why doesn't he like it? A, it makes the wrestler in the ring who doesn't hook the leg look stupid. And B, it devalues any attempt at a pin without the leg hooked. And fans are to believe that the wrestler will kick out if the leg isn't hooked. So talk about some nitpicking here from a young Dave Meltzer. But
No, yeah, that got to him. Interestingly enough, nowadays, I think WWE is like a machine, right? The way they train the wrestlers, I don't think nobody ever goes for a pinfall without hooking the leg. Now everybody hooks the leg.
yeah,
Um,
except if there's like a big heel who's like trying to show up some like little small baby face or whatever.
right, right. But the norm is to hook the leg. Whereas back then, you're still doing that, just grabbing their arm, like crossing. It was different, you know. But yeah, Dave's mad because they should be calling the leg spot and they don't.
Yeah. All right. How about this for some booking here? Colonel De
No, but wait a
Beer.
minute. Let me interrupt you because Gino. What would bother me about Gino, and I know you remember this. So if somebody had a headlock or even like a chin lock, Gino would tell either Bobby or whomever was his color commentator, I've never seen anybody give up from this move. Have you? Like what? And then it's like, dude, what are you doing? Like
Yeah.
he's not gonna do anything with that. Like, what is he doing? Anyways, go ahead. I'm
He
sorry.
would actually do the reverse of what a commentator should do in certain situations. And I don't know if he's just mad at somebody or he's frustrated, but he's also, because of who he is, he's like one of the biggest stars in the company. So he can
Yeah, he's
kind of get
untouchable.
away. He can kind of get away with it, just being a dick, and so
Yeah.
it's also a way for him to just show that, come on, man, like I'm better than this guy or whatever.
Yeah, he's still putting himself over.
Okay, Colonel De Beers versus Derek Dukes. The stipulation was that if either man could beat the other in less than 10 minutes, the man paints the other guy. So if De Beers gets the Duke over Dukes, he gets to paint Derek Dukes, who's a black man, white. And if
Oh,
Dukes wins the match, he gets to paint Colonel De Beers black. What the hell?
oh my god! And is this in Oregon?
You know what? I don't even know where this is. It might be in Oregon.
Because Colonel De Beers is usually works in Oregon,
Yeah.
which
I
is
don't
which would be unusual because they usually don't do those kind of racist angles.
this one just for whatever reason made me smile. Outlaw Ron Bass, who we remember from earlier in the year and 88 as well, where he's, with the Spurs and, he's got the
Hmm.
whip and everything. Very memorable character. Ron Bass is now retired and living in Tampa selling plants. Is that a
I think
job? Can you just sell
some,
plants?
I guess it is in Tampa. Good luck with that, though.
Oh, okay.
The
So Dave,
climate is not very plant friendly in Tampa.
here's a two-parter. This was in consecutive issues. The first issue said King Kong Bundy had a front row seat at WrestleMania 5, and he was
I did see
cheering.
that.
He was cheering. And in fact, the only one cheering for the baby faces during the prelim matches. No mention of him was made on the telecast, and Bundy was given seats facing away from the cameras and was never acknowledged on television. So I'm reading this and I'm like, I've never actually heard this story.
Neither
Crazy.
have I.
And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
then the very next issue, Dave goes, "We were mistaken in reporting that King Kong Bundy was in the front row at WrestleMania. It was actually someone who looked like him, but it wasn't him."
How do you look like him? It takes a lot.
I don't know.
The
Now I
walking
really want to look. I really want to find out who this guy is now.
the walking condominium.
You know what's funny is LaRocca and I reviewed all the Raws in 1993, and so there was this moment in Raw where this guy gets engaged to his fiance or his girlfriend. The guy's name, it was in one of those New York.
I remember that. Look who you're talking to, bro. I remember that.
Paul Sosnowski was his name. So LaRocca and I are talking about this segment, and it's Paul Sosnowski, and this is so weird. Like, why are they doing this? And he's not a wrestler, so he's just performing his, trying to get engaged with his girlfriend. So I'm doing that. We're doing the whole thing, and we review it, and then the next day on Twitter, I get a DM from none other than Paul Sosnowski, who was somebody who gave Dave a lot of feedback back in the day. So that's why he followed me, I'm assuming.
But how did you ask him how he got the connection to get publicity for getting married?
He told me the story, but I forgot it was they were looking for something and they did it or whatever. But yeah, it was kind of cool. So now that we're saying this, if the person who Dave confused with King Kong Bundy at WrestleMania 5 is listening to this, shoot me a DM. I want to hear what the story was about.
Yes, please. We want to know how you look like King Kong Bundy of all people.
All right, last bit of Only in the Observer here. So Dave writes that there are some major internal problems, and he's talking about at TBS. The Clash replay on April 13th did a 1.5 rating, but it was a well-kept secret. It followed an NBA game, and during the game, Bob Neal, who was, I'm assuming, the announcer for the basketball game, plugged the movie Clash of the Champions after the game. I'm assuming he thought it was Clash of the Titans. So he said, there's this movie, Clash of the Champions. After they corrected him and told him to plug the wrestling show, the producers refused, claiming it was beneath their dignity to plug the wrestling show after the NBA game.
They can't even work together at this time.
And this is also around the same time during an Atlanta Braves game. Chip Carey, whose father was Harry Carey and whose son was Skip Carey. They're all broadcasters.
Skip. Okay.
Yeah, Chip Carey. There were the Olympic trials, or there was something that had to do with Greco-Roman or freestyle wrestling, and so they were talking about it on the Braves game because I think that was going to be on TBS. So they're talking about what's the difference between freestyle wrestling, and they're kind of making fun of pro wrestling, and then they started talking about pro wrestling, and they're like, oh yeah, you Hulk Hogan and this and that on the same station that owned the NWA. They own the company, and your baseball announcers are talking about the Hulk Hogan and such on their broadcast. So
I could see that happening today, though. Still,
like it happens on the TNT and inside the NBA because Charles Barkley, he's a big wrestling fan, but he's a wrestling fan of like Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan and those guys. Though he does know some of the current guys, he knows Chris Jericho. He knows some of the WWE guys, but yeah, they're on Turner as well. And Charles is old, a little bit more old school.
Well, the difference is that Turner doesn't own AEW. They're just,
Yeah.
So yeah.